What's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast. I got my boy Chase Hardinger here today. He's going to tell us about what it's like to go through an F5 tornado. I don't know if you guys even know what that is. Some of you in California, you're probably like, what is that? Go ahead and Google it. It's an insanely big tornado. We won't get into that story just yet. We're going to basically have some fun before we get into that. But Chase, what's up, man? How was your day?
It's been so far so good. It was really hot today. I think we had like 115 heat index, so pretty sweaty.
Yeah.
Kansas is miserable.
I have a lot of guys at work. I think it's only 85. And like my boss will be sitting there. He's like, man, it's really getting warm. And I'm like,
You have no idea.
Like, this ain't nothing, man. It's pretty crazy how spoiled we are in California, like with the weather. That's about it. I mean, that's what we pay for. But it's 95 is like, oh my gosh, it's a real hot day today. But clearly,
I mean, you got 95 plus you're next to the water, so it's going to be humid. But we don't have the humidity. So it's like borderline wants to be humid, but it's almost like a desert at the same time.
I mean, we are a desert. California is a desert.
Well, touche, but
but like, if I'm being honest with you, I completely disagree because when I get off the plane in the summer, like I always love to visit in July. July is my favorite in Kansas. It's the greenest. You got in like for the 4th of July, you could actually blow some stuff up.
Sure.
So like, love coming back for that. And every time I come back, like I get off the plane that's just been, air sealed or whatever, and it's like this just heat wave of like heat and sweat, like instant like sweat comes, and I'm like, yeah, I'm home, in July.
Yeah, okay, I stand corrected.
But hey, yeah, so it was a hot day, huh? Are you working with Dad and Josh right now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we've been in the shop for this week so far, working on an engine for my dad's truck.
Dude, so the shop has to be blistering hot.
Oh yeah, it's brutal. Yeah, my dad's truck went down in December, broke a crankshaft, so he wanted to spend some money on it. So we're building up like a pretty mean engine for it, and this has been going on ever since we ordered parts in January, and it's still not done. But
yeah, that sounds like your dad. Your dad always has like some scrap projects in that shop at all times.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could literally spend probably the next 10 years fixing everything you guys have.
Dude, there's so much stuff that's broken. Like everything we have is broken in some form or another. It needs some kind of love, some kind of attention, and it just doesn't get it. Like there's just too much other things going on, too many other projects that make money. So you can't just sit in the shop and fix your stuff all the time. Like, although that's what I would like to do. Like that's where I shine the most. Like, or at least I feel like I do. I love to fix things, and I'm pretty good at tearing something apart and putting it back together. So,
yeah, you're like a meth head without the meth.
Yeah.
No, it's great though. Like you're badass at what you do. I've always been impressed with your mechanical mind. You, your dad's, your brother, even like your operating skills. Like you guys just all have this like, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's a construction DNA because I haven't seen it in anybody else that I've worked with in California, and I work construction for the last 10 years out here. You guys just have this like niche about you. I swear if one of you like just decided to have somebody film you guys and put it on YouTube and like somehow edit it, it'd be a hit. Everybody would love to watch it because your dad's hilarious. Josh is hilarious. You're hilarious. Brent is hilarious. One time.
No, here we go.
One time, like 10 years ago, we were working in the shop, and maybe it was longer than that. It could have been like 12, 13, 14 years ago. I was working in the shop with Josh, and Brent comes up and he's like, hey, Andrew, you're coming with me. We're going to go out to Northrop or something like that. You know what I mean? To go do something. And I was like, me and Josh were working on something in the shop. And I was like, nah, man, I'm working in the shop. And he goes, what'd you say? And I was like, I'm working in the shop with Josh. He's like, do you not know who I am? And like, I was like, oh yeah, shit. You're Brent. And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna get you fired. You're fired. Like, I was like, you know how Brent gets? Brent's really not that big of an asshole, everybody. This was before Me and him were in a band together. This was like my first year working for you guys, and I was just like, nah, I'm cool, man. I'm gonna work with Josh. And he just got all butthurt. But I love you, Brent, if you're listening. And yeah, stranger danger. But anyways,
Strange.
to piggyback on, like him and I being in a band, I talked with Dusty Sharts on here not too long ago, and we talked about how we wrote that album Scout in Hutch, Kansas. And then I was actually in firefighting school, and it was midterms week, and I called Grant, who lived in Greeley, Colorado, and I was like, hey, man, or I was hitting him up on Facebook. Hey, I have this 10-song album that I want to record. Is there any way that I can get in the studio somewhere? Because he told me he worked, or he was going to school for music. And he's like, yeah, dude, you can come to Greeley, Colorado in a week, whatever, in a week. And he's like, that's the only week that's free because it's spring break or whatever.
Sure.
Well, that week was my finals in firefighting. And in my head, I thought that album was going to hit the radio, and I was going to be the next Jason Aldean, baby.
Sure.
So I was like, yeah, man, I'll come next week. And I called you up, or somehow you got involved, and I was like, hey, Brent, some of these songs need some drums on it. Do you want to come with and put some drums down? So then I guess it was you, me, Grant, and Brent, right?
Yeah.
And we all got in your pickup, and we took off to Greeley, Colorado to record the album. Funny thing is, though, that week that we did that was my midterms, so I failed firefighting. And yeah, but at the time I didn't care. I was like, dude, I'm gonna be on billboards. My dad won't care whenever I hit that, top country artist, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Anyways, didn't happen, but we had a great time recording that album. And then we needed a bass player, and you hopped on and started playing bass and kicked ass. And then
Yeah, that was probably like a month after we got back from recording Scout. You needed the bass player because Grant had one of his buddies, I think Josh Freed, come in and do the bass track for it. And since we all lived together, it just made sense. Like, I'll just start playing bass. And then speaking to Josh from earlier, his brother had a bass guitar, and he's like, I'll sell this to you. I don't ever play it. It's like a beautiful Fender. I gave it away, but beautiful Fender bass guitar for my very first bass, and just picked it up. Grant taught me a few things, and I took it from there. And not saying like I became the greatest bassist of all times, but it worked out for our little band, our little gig,
dude,
for our benefit concerts.
You kicked ass, yeah, our benefit concerts. We lived in that small house on the outside of Greensburg. Probably the only one house that wasn't affected by that tornado.
Yeah.
And it was affected though. That thing was like from The Shining or The Haunting. Like
yeah.
That house, like if I wasn't living with you and Grant upstairs, and I had to live up there alone, I think I'd see some ghosts or something, because that upstairs was creepy. But with all of us in there, it wasn't creepy. It was just a stoner house.
Stoner house.
It was the best, man. Like we would go to Colorado. Well, I would go find my ways to get some weed, like somewhere in Kansas. And I remember bringing back like I don't know, like $80 worth of this really purple weed. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
Like, it was like, we called it Barney shit, because like it was just completely purple. Like, we first of all, you'd never wanted to bring weed around me, because I probably was just gonna burn it. Like, there was no, I was such a stoner that we would smoke a bowl. You'd be like, hey man, I'm really high right now, and I'd be like, I'm gonna pack another one. Like, and it was like really kind of pointless to keep going. But then we'd play music and play Call of Duty Black Ops, like all the time. And
Sticks and Stones, man.
Sticks and Stones, and One in the Chamber.
Yep.
That was
so much fun.
Dude, that was the best. It was a great time. Like, for people who don't like weed and all that, trust me, it was actually very innocent fun. And to be honest, like I laughed that whole time in that house. It was so much fun.
The worst part about that was when I got really into weed, like really into weed, and became addicted to it, and it became a real problem in my life. But it only lasted for a year, like by the grace of God. Like that
Yeah.
whole segment of my life was pretty rough, to be honest with you. Towards the end of it, anyway. Like you would already moved out.
Okay.
I think, yeah, you went to Tulsa by then.
No, I went to
Weldon school.
Barkley. Funny thing is like I had a dream, and it was a dream about like a family and having a family and all that. And like I woke up and I realized I was on this path that wasn't leading to that. And I go I just was like, hey, I'm gonna stop smoking, and I'm gonna go to Barkley, and I'm gonna find a good Christian girl, and I'm gonna ride off into the sunset with her, and
Yeah.
be a missionary. And I really did go to Barkley to become a missionary. And then in doing so, I quit weed literally overnight. I think I tried it a couple more times. Funny story, real quick. I was living with Nick Perez, um, and I was playing Call of Duty. Same thing. It's probably 2 months after leaving the band house, and I smoke a bowl. I didn't because I was trying to quit, but I was like, you know what? I got Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I got no plans. I'm gonna play some Call of Duty, and I felt like when I smoked, I got real into it and got good. And
Oh yeah, for sure.
so I smoked, and then I'm playing, and all of a sudden, whee, the tornado sirens went off, and I was like, what the heck? Because I didn't have cable, and so I got on my phone, and sure enough, it was a tornado warning, and I went to the basement that he had, and I lifted it up because I'd never really seen it. It was like one of those on the kitchen floor where you lift up and you can go
Oh
down.
yeah, just like crawl space then. Yeah.
Yeah, I lifted it up, and it's like only 2.5 feet. And I'm like, dude, I'm gonna die if a tornado rolls through here. And then I'm stoned on top of that. But luckily, like it didn't hit, nothing happened, just like normal tornadoes, But
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's I mean, we'll get into that story later, but yeah, that's the way they typically are. It's just like you hear about them, you hear the sirens go off. It was that way forever. I remember as a kid go around, you could see tornadoes just outside of town, but they were always harmless. They were small. They were always everywhere else. It's like all the things you hear on the news. That's somewhere else. It'll never happen here, but it's definitely happened here too.
yeah, no, I'm with you. Like even to this day, I'm guessing if you guys got tornado sirens in Greensburg or Haviland, especially being older, I bet you, Call Huffman, all those guys, like they would probably get in their trucks and be like, where is it? Like
Yeah, exactly.
it's still a thing. Like it's still something that, it's storm chasing, man. As guys, like you can either, it's kind of weird because when you hear a tornado siren, you look at the news and you look at the map of Kansas, and they have each county, and they have it as like yellow if it's a bad thunderstorm, and then red is okay, it's getting nasty, and then like purple is tornado, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
so you look at the map on your TV, at least back in 2007, this is what you did. And I'm sure they have amazing Doppler radars on your phone now. But and so you'd be sitting there in your basement watching it, and you'd be like, okay, there's my county box right there. It looks like a shoe, and I'm right above there, and you would look, and if it was red, you were like, okay, still no purple, so I don't think there's. And then all of a sudden it moves past, and then you see that red brick go up to the next county, then the next county, and then yours kind of just fades away back to safe, you could say. And so I was a scaredy cat. I'd always get in my basement and just be like this, staring at the screen, just waiting for that red or whatever to move up. I didn't like storm chasing at all. I like it terrified me as a kid.
Yeah, Kansas storms can get wicked, even without the threat of tornadoes. Like what here a month ago, like my girlfriend's car got totaled along with everybody else's out at my parents' house. Little storm comes through, and just looking at the radar, it was just a tiny, tiny little storm, like no bigger than the size of Greensburg. And here it's dropping, probably tennis ball sized hail. with like an 80-mile-an-hour wind to make sure they come in nice and fast, and yeah, just tore shit up. But
I think I saw that
yeah, I'm sure you probably saw some pictures of it.
on
But
Facebook. Yeah, because I follow everybody from on my Facebook is basically from Kansas. But what was it? Just a gnarly thunderstorm that rolled
yeah,
through?
just a little storm came through and decided to drop some pretty wicked hail. My
Yeah.
mom's truck has like $25,000 worth of damage to it. Like I said, my girlfriend's car got totaled. My sister's car, I don't know, $18,000. Brent's car totaled. Like everybody that was out there got some serious damage. So,
Dang. Yeah,
but
hail's nuts. A lot of questions that people in California have for me is like, hey bro, so with this hail damage stuff, like what do they do with cars like at car dealerships? And I'm like, that's a good question because I know that there's been hailstorms that I've seen in Kansas where when you drive the next day, especially in Greensburg, when you would drive from Haviland into the Greensburg pool area, you drive by a car dealership, and I just remember seeing dot 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 like dings all over these cars,
mm-hmm.
brand new cars. Like I'm curious what the insurance is on that at car dealerships.
I don't know. I remember when we were shopping to replace my girlfriend's car, I asked that our salesman. I was like, "What do you guys do? Does the dealership actually own these cars? Like, does Toyota own these cars? Like, what happens? Like, who's insuring all these vehicles? Because a hailstorm like that comes through, wipes out your entire inventory. Like, who's paying for that? Is Toyota paying for it? Do you have like the most expensive insurance premium in the world? Like, what's the deal?" And he's like, "Oh, everybody does it different." And he's like, "But yeah, most of these are owned by the company and insured by the company, and I'm sure they have better rates because it's not like they're driving these vehicles all the time. But still, I have to have some sort of hail damage coverage and theft coverage and all that."
Yeah,
So,
I would wonder if like if the price would drop dramatically. Like if they were just like, all right, we'll just try to sell them and knock down 5-10 grand.
yeah, there is some like you. I think a lot of them get sent to dealer auctions.
Okay.
I don't know. That's some kind of taboo thing, but nobody knows about. Nobody can get into these private dealer auctions, but
Where are these at, dude?
yeah, I know, dude. Everybody, that's how they sell them cheap, and then it's like it's like a group. If you're in it, you're in it, and you can go to these dealer auctions, buy vehicles for cheap, and then take them to your lot and sell them, make 3-4 grand a pop.
Yeah. No, that's one of those you got to be in the niche or whatever. The
Yeah, I got to
niche.
be in the business.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's segue this into your experience with one of the biggest tornadoes ever recorded in history. At the
I think
time, it was the biggest. November. I keep saying weird dates like December 4th, and I'm like, wait a second, no, it's May 4th,
May 4th.
2007.
Yes, sir. So I'll just get into the story. Um, at the time, I was 16 years old, and I was at a track meet that day over in Buckland. Buckland's about 20 miles from Greensburg, for those of you who don't know. The sky looked very green, like had all these colors in it, but mostly green that day. And I can remember everybody was freaking out about the storms. Everybody was talking about the storms. They had been forecasting this for a week that we were going to have possible tornadoes and all that. So I remember like I was just going to skip the bus ride and just ride back with my mom because the bus was going to be there for a while longer. My events were done. And she's like, "Yeah, let's get out of here." So we take off to town. The storm's getting worse, and we're headed straight towards it. And I can remember like getting pretty nervous because it looked horrible, like colors that you don't see unless shit's getting really, really bad. I don't know if you recently saw like the pictures from, was it North Dakota, where the sky, like the ground, everything was green. Did you see any of that?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, there's some pictures popping around. Anyway,
We'll look
but I
it up.
guess what? Yeah, when there's a ton of hail in the clouds, like I guess the sky turns green. I don't know why, but I can remember that being the most prevalent color. So we get back to town, rolling up to the house. As soon as we hit city limits, like we can already hear.
What time of night was this?
I don't remember. Probably around. I think about 6:45. It was either 6:45 or 7:45, somewhere in that time frame.
It was pretty dark though, which is rare, kind of.
Yeah, I mean the sky had become so overcast and cloudy, like it was getting pretty dark pretty fast. Normally it doesn't get dark, this time of year until 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So we hit the city limits, and like we could already hear the tornado sirens going off. Like, what the hell is going on? And this was, kind of before smartphones, like talk about back in the day or whatever, but it wasn't as convenient. You couldn't look up and see what the radar was doing. You couldn't see where the warnings were. You couldn't see, what was going on. And we get home, turn on the news, they're like, tornadoes headed up Highway 183. Tornadoes headed up Highway 183. Heading right for Greensburg, heading right for Greensburg. Well, initially that storm had pretty well traveled that highway, which is straight north and south, for like 10 or 15 miles. And like, oh, Greensburg's in the clear, it might get hit. But for the most part, it looks like it's in the clear. And then a couple miles south of town, it takes a right, starts heading off to the east, and just bullseye Greensburg right up the pipe. So
where were you in this? Okay, so you just got back from that track meet.
15 minutes. Yeah, we had 15 minutes.
You had 15 minutes real quick. So you run into your house, and what's your protocol in your house, to prepare for a tornado?
So in my 16-year-old mind, all I could think about, and it took me a while to think about this, is like, man, this thing might actually hit. Like, what do you do? Like, what do you prepare for? And so it was get flashlights, get some bottles of water. Thankfully, like, I was still in like my track uniform, so shorts and a cutoff or a tank top. And I was smart enough to go get some jeans and some boots on. I was like, if I have to dig my way out of this place, like, I don't want running shoes on, So I went and got my boots on, went and got some jeans on. Never changed out of my tank top, unfortunately, but that was the prep. And then we sat down in the basement. We waited, waited and waited and waited. Maybe this thing's gonna hit. Maybe it's not. It was so dark at that point. And the rainfall was so heavy and the hail was so heavy, like even the storm spotters were having trouble tracking it. And then and because of that, like there's so much rain and stuff in that storm, I don't think it was very easily tracked on radar either. But they knew, like, the lightning was popping enough, like the spotters could see it, like they were just following it up the highway. And so like, yeah, it's going to hit Greensburg. It's going to hit Greensburg. So, and there was so much time involved. Like I say, the sirens had been going for at least 15 minutes before it ever got to town. And as we waited in the basement, like our family was calling, like, hey, are you guys safe? Are you in the basement? There's a tornado headed towards Greensburg. Yeah. I can remember being on the phone with my uncle from Hutchinson. Like, yeah, we're okay. We're all good. We're in the basement. And in the middle of that phone call, the phone cut. Like, it just cut out. Like, well, that's probably not good.
Is this a landline or is it a cell phone?
Yeah, landline.
Okay. Keep going.
So, yeah. So, the old landlines, man. Yeah, it's been a while. But the phone cut out. Like, okay, that's probably not good. And a little bit later, the TV cuts out. Okay, that's really not good. We still had power. And then, bam, here goes the power. And so we had no flashlights and stuff. Like, we were prepared for it. Power went out every time the wind blew anyway, so it wasn't anything new. And I'm standing across the room in the basement. My mom and my brother across on the other side. And I'm standing there and my ears popped. Like you change elevation or whatever. Like really, really bad. And I told my mom, I was like, my ears just popped. And she got really pissed at me. She's like, this is not a time to joke around. Like, this isn't funny. Like, there's a tornado coming. And then she just stops. And her and Brent looked like with these big old deer eyes, like mine did too. Mom's like, get under the stairs. And so we go hauling ass underneath the stairs. And just as we get the door shut, it sounded like somebody lit a bomb off outside of our house. Like, there was no, like, you hear people talk about like a train or a rumble before it gets there or something like that. Not that I remember. All I remember is the windows. Like, it sounded like every single window inside the house exploded all at the same time. and then it was just on from there. You get just boards breaking, cracking, stuff flying around. Like sounds like somebody's throwing a kitchen table through the house, just playing toss or playing ball with it or something like that. Just really loud, big bangs. And this went on for what seemed like an hour, but I mean, it couldn't have been that long, even though it was a pretty large tornado. But
How long do you think it was? Like, if you had to guess.
I don't know. If I would say probably 5 minutes.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it's a really long time. It's a really long time. And it was long enough to where like I was crouched down underneath the stairs. We didn't clean all the stuff out, your typical like paint cans and stuff like that. And I was like, I had my knee or my leg underneath me sitting on it, and my mom's like holding us boys, like praying her head off, and she's got me like in this chokehold. And I was like trying to get up so I could get some feeling back in my leg. And she's like, no, you can't go out there. It's still going on. I'm like, I know, Mom. I can't feel my leg. You got me in a chokehold. I can't move. So anyway, yeah, I mean, we were in there for that long, I guess. But yeah, it was the most violent sounds you can think of, just all happening at the same time. And when I say like a bomb, it wasn't like a boom. It was just like a bomb would do, like just explode everything all at the same time. And then it just kept going and kept going and kept going.
So you were underneath the stairs and you could you see out into your basement and still see the roof of your basement? Or were you like closed in a door?
Yeah, we were closed in a door. It had a little door on it that we had shut. And
okay. Normally what happens with tornadoes is it comes through, it hits, but this one was so damn big. It was 1.7 miles in rotation, 220 mile an hour winds or something like that. And then, so it hits your house. Clearly what you described happens. Did it ever seem to stop like you were in the eye of the storm?
Not that I remember. My brother said that, and my mom both say that like it felt like there was an eye, like it went through and then there was just like the calm again, and then it went through some more. You talk to people that were more in the center of town, more in the center of the tornado, because we were on Bay Street, which was basically the edge of the tornado, maybe another block. And I don't remember there being like an eye or anything like that. But my girlfriend was telling me like when they were in the like dead center of it. When it went over their house, there was a pause, like a big enough pause to where their dad got out of the house or out of the storm shelter, went to go try to help people, and then like they could tell it was coming again, and so they had to like haul ass back to the storm shelter again. And could barely get the door closed before here comes the back end of it.
That's some Twister shit right there, dude.
Yeah, no, it really is. Like, yeah, I thought it was ridiculous when she told me, but I believe it because it was a monster.
Yeah, no, and the fact that, yeah, like I said, it was 1.7 miles wide, so that eye could have been, I don't know, like
a mile,
maybe a mile, maybe, yeah. So like if he got out, oh man, what a trip! And it had to have been pitch black. It had to have been super dark.
Yeah.
But if it was like during the day and he got out, I bet you he could have looked up and seen the sky. It probably would have been sunshine, and for that second, and he would have seen outside of it and been like, oh my gosh, and then ran back in. But that's crazy. That's crazy, man. Like,
yeah.
The beautiful thing about talking to you about this is like the percentage of the world that goes through something like this is like 0.000000000. You could go on for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to hear your take on it. So it crashes your house, feels like explosions for 5 minutes, just like your kitchen, your bathtub's getting tossed across your house, and then it stops, right? Like well, I heard this tornado not only went over Greensburg, but then it also kind of took a shift, like you're swirling a batter in a bowl, and it came back and hit it again.
I don't think that's true. If you look at the map, like it's, I think where that came from, where people were talking about that, was there were spinoffs. Like it was big enough that it made little tornadoes that went out further east, and they weren't near as powerful enough to tear some people's houses up, but nothing like the main tornado. And I think that's where people thought like this thing must have like hooked around and came back because it got these other houses. But no, it didn't happen like that. It just spun some other smaller ones off, or they just touched down, whatever. I don't know what happened, but no, it never came back. If you follow the path of it, like I said, it came up 183, pretty much going straight north and south, came over to Greensburg, and then started to go back towards 183 before it died out. So basically, it rode on the ground for I think half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. Got through Greensburg, was like, well, my work here is done, and then a mile north of town, it just disintegrated.
Dissipated.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting. The myth there, from what I've heard, is like, wasn't Kiowa County like a dry county? And then they opened up a liquor store, and they're like, it was the liquor store's fault.
There's a lot of superstition. My dad tells me all about. I don't know if you remember Verl Joy.
Who?
Verl Joy.
Sounds familiar. I don't remember though.
He was an old plumber from here, old like fix it all kind of guy. He said that because on Main Street there was some statues on top of these old buildings. One was like a rooster, and one was a rabbit or a hare. And so because we had like the cock chasing the hare, it was doomed. Like it was a curse or a hex on the town, and it was going to get blown apart. But yeah, and then the liquor store thing, like as soon as it became a wet county. Yeah,
you gotta love that though. You gotta love those superstitions, man.
Yeah.
Like when you tell me that, and that old timers talk about the cock and the rooster and the rabbit, you got to think of like the old west,
Right.
Like, oh, they cursed this town years ago.
Yeah. Disregard the fact that those have been up on top of that building for 100 years.
Yeah. And they're like gargoyles and stuff on the buildings too. I can't remember. Like I forget where that was, but it may not be Greensburg. It may be somewhere else that I can't remember.
Yeah. But supposedly Greensburg was cursed because we had some statues on top of some buildings on Main Street, but yeah, I don't buy that.
No. Well, I was at that same track meet that you were at that night. It was my last day of high school. So it was a very memorable day for me because it was my last day of high school. And then, so you know how that feels, you're done. You're completely done with school. Like, this is great. And I remember being at that track meet and then the hail coming in and them canceling it. And I was driving back, and I was going to drive through Greensburg and go to my town in Haviland. In Lane Kendall, when we got to Mullenville, I didn't have a cell phone then because I didn't have a cell phone until I was 19 or something. But Lane was in front of me in his Jeep, and he rolled down his window and he pointed like this to go into Mullenville. And so like in my head, I'm like, okay. So I turn in there, and then we go to Ruben Perez's house, and his mom, like, all the power goes out. Like we show up, and all of a sudden 5 minutes in, the power went out. We were playing drums. His dad had a drum set, and his mom made us burritos because I believe she had a gas stove. And so she was hooking us up, and then one of us had a CB radio in the truck. And so all we're hearing is sirens because we're right by a highway. Highway is 54?
Yeah, that'd be 400, but close enough.
Okay. So they're just flying through, all heading to Greensburg. So we get on the CB radio, and it's like, we're listening to these cops, and they're like, 70% of Greensburg is gone. And then all of a sudden it was like 100, like everybody was like, and it just got more, like it was like, no, 90% is gone. Like, this place is demolished. And so what was it like when you got outside of your house, and how did you get out of your house?
Yeah, so once it was done, my mom did not want us to get out of the basement. She did not want to go upstairs. She's a complete and total wreck, like crying, panicking, does not want to go upstairs and see what just happened to her house, because that was like her dream home. She loved that house. They had put a ton of money and effort into it, whatever. She knew it got torn apart just by the sound. It was pretty obvious what happened. And by the time we, I just did something here.
You're good.
By the time we got upstairs, it was obviously very, very dark, still cloudy, no power, no lights, no nothing. but there was enough lightning flashing that you could still kind of every once in a while see around. And we could see our, obviously we had flashlights. We could see the interior of our house was pretty messed up. It's hard to get through because there's so many 2x4s and shit laying around. And I remember finally getting my mom upstairs. Like, we have to get out of here. Like, we got to go call somebody. We got to let Dad know. We got to let Alyssa know that we're okay. Like, we're fine. There's nothing wrong with us. And I finally get her upstairs. Brent's already long gone. Like, Brent felt a calling. Like, God told him, you need to go over to the neighbor's house. You need to save our neighbors because they were pinned down in the basement. The house is about to collapse on them. And he actually went and pulled like an old lady, maybe a couple ladies out of their basement before the house literally came crashing the rest of the way down. Probably would have killed them. And
Wow.
Anyway, so he's long gone. Like,
Wow.
he was out of there. So it's just me and Mom. I'm trying to get her like to calm down so I can get out and go help people. But I can tell like she's not doing very good at all. So we get upstairs, finally get her up the stairs, and she's looking around, and lightning flashes as she's looking out what used to be the kitchen window and sees our neighbor's house, which was completely leveled, like somebody had taken a dozer and just pushed the whole thing away. And that sends her to like a complete and total panic because, oh my God, the neighbors are dead. Like, everybody's dead. If it just cleaned their house like completely flat to nothing, like everybody's dead. And so she was like rushing back down the stairs, back to safety, back to the room. So I go down there with her, stay with her, console with her, and she's sitting there crying and panicking, like starting to hyperventilate. And eventually she kind of slows down. She stops. She says, Chase, I've never told you this before. I never told any of you kids, but I have a history of seizures. And I'm like, what the hell is a seizure? She's like, I'm going to stop moving. I'm going to stop talking, but I'll be fine. Like, okay, this is pretty awesome. So she's laying down. I'm just sitting there beside her like, man, I really want to get out and go help people, make sure neighbors are okay, whatever. And we probably laid there for 15 minutes, I would guess. And eventually she like whispers to me. She muscles up as much as she can. She tells me, Chase, I'm starting to have trouble breathing. I was like, oh my God. Like, do you have any idea how long it's going to take like a paramedic or somebody to try to come in here and revive you, like resus or whatever? Like, if she stops breathing, it's going to be me and CPR. And I didn't have a clue about CPR at the time. Like, okay, this is probably bad. And then the only thing I knew to do at that point, like I went through the checklist of what possibilities, what can I do to fix this situation? And it was pray. And so I knelt down beside her, and it was like the Holy Spirit just took over like that. And I started praying a prayer that I couldn't remember in that very moment. Like, I didn't know what I was saying. I didn't know why I was saying it. The Holy Spirit just took over. I started praying. And the second that I touched my hands to her body, it was like I hit her with a defibrillator, like I shocked her. Yeah, and I'm not even joking, you dude. Like, it was like a shock, like she jolted. Everything on her jolted, and she couldn't move her hands, she couldn't move her arms, she couldn't move her feet, she couldn't do anything because she's essentially paralyzed from the seizure, right? And within probably 5 minutes, like, she came back out of that seizure. And they usually take at least 2 hours, 3 hours for her to come out of them. And this was the worst one she had ever had. Like, she's never had trouble breathing during one. And finally, like, she calms down. She's like, wow, that was incredible. We're both like, oh my God, that was incredible. Thank you, Jesus. And she wants to get back upstairs. So we make our way back upstairs, and she starts going back into the panic and crying. I'm like, you're going to have to pull it together here, woman. Like, we have to let some people know that we're okay, because I'm sure they're terrified. And I'm trying to think, like, our cell phones don't work. Our landlines obviously don't work. And I thought, oh man, we just got a brand new pickup. This is when OnStar had just come out. I don't know. Do you know what OnStar is?
I remember OnStar. That button you press and it's like me to call anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Like, satellite phone service. So I thought, all right, we got a brand new truck. It's in the garage. I'm going to go try the sat phone. So trying to get out of the house. All the doorways are completely full of debris. Can't get out. But luckily, the tornado had blown like a nice hole through the laundry room. So I could get through like the bathroom and laundry room and just walk outside. So I finally make my way out there, climb it through all the rubble, all the debris, and make it to the truck. And the truck had been in the garage, so like it was still there. The mirror's just like hanging from the ceiling, but it's got the button on it still for OnStar. So I hit the button, try to make a phone call to my sister, because like if anybody's answering their phone right now, it's going to be her, because I knew my dad went to Pratt, and I figured like he's probably on the way back by now. I'm sure he's heard about this tornado. I'm sure he's close, so his cell phone's not going to work. And I was like, I'll call my sister. She's up in Hayes, and then she can call whoever from there. All I just need to tell her is we're okay. So I get on there and I'm trying to call her. She won't answer. Like it's just going to voicemail. Like what the hell is going on? Turns out she was trying to call us like so frequently that I couldn't get a phone call through her. So what I ended up doing was like, I can't mess with this anymore. I can't sit here anymore. I've got to go check and help people, because it's probably been like half an hour, 45 minutes since the tornado hit at this point. Like I got to go make sure people are okay. And finally I was like, I'll just call OnStar, talk to an operator, and tell her, or tell the operator to call this number until they can get a hold of them and let them know that we're okay. So I get a hold of the operator and I'm like, hey, our town was just hit by a freaking tornado. Can you please call this number and this number and let them know that we're okay? She's like, your town was what? It's like a tornado. She didn't understand what a tornado was. Like, lady, please call these numbers and tell them that their family's fine. We're alive. So, like, all right, we're in good hands, right? This operator got it under control. I'm gonna go try to find some people that need help, assess the damage in town. So I get out of the truck, walk out in the driveway, and my neighbor starts coming up the driveway, and he's like yelling, hey, we need some help at the hospital. Like, oh, didn't think about that. That's a big problem, because the hospital's like a block from our house. So I know it's pretty jacked up. And my thought was, oh, wait, we've got some machinery down at the shop. The shop's, a mile away from the house. Like, tornadoes are never that big. Like, I'm sure all that stuff down there is fine. I'll go grab a machine. I'll clear the roads. That way we can get some ambulances in and out of the hospital to help people out, right? So I take off, headed to the shop. Walking, climbing over power poles, climbing over trees, climbing over people's houses, like just cruising right along. And I come up on this like really, really big street. And I look down, like there's this really big hill. I'm like, what the hell? Like, where am I? And then finally it dawned on me, I was at the highway. And so if I was at the highway, I was only a block from our shop, and everything was still just a pile of rubble. I'm like, oh my God, this is awful. So I finally get down to the shop, and the shop had just like fallen straight down on top of everything. Like, all right, I'll just jump in, I'll climb in here, I'll climb through all this brick and stuff, I'll jump in the skid loader, and I'll just dig my way out. So here I am, finally climb through the shop, get my way dug in there, jump in the skid steer, it fires right up. I'm like, all right, we're in business. I'm just gonna start moving stuff out of my way until I get out of here and can get down to the hospital. That lasted maybe about 5 minutes before a tire blew and the hydraulic line broke. There was just so much stuff. I'm like, well, that's not gonna work.
It sounds like a really heroic scene in a movie when you say it like that. You're like, I got in the loader, I was gonna clean it up. Ambulances were gonna be able to drive and get people out of there. The thing just all sorts of.
It was an epic failure.
Great try though.
Yeah, and it sounded great in theory. So that didn't work. I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna climb out of this thing, and we've got a forklift just across the street. I'm gonna go check on it. Hopefully it's still there. So I climb out of the skid steer, climb out of the shop, get back to the street. I'm like, oh, I can finally see the forklift. There it is. Tires are good. It's still sitting in the same spot we left it. Like, good, we're in business now. So I've got like this is back when LED flashlights were just coming out, and I don't know if you remember how pathetic like an LED flashlight was back then, but they were awful. It was like holding a candle. and I had 2 of those. So as I drove or fired up this forklift and I drove, I used one to like see where I was going, like with the driving, and the other one to see like which gear I was, where the controls were, and all that. And finally get like to the highway, push power pulls out of the way, and like I'm probably gonna die because these things are probably still alive. But anyway, make it to the highway, make it down to the hospital street, and that's when it turned into like a horror film because I made it probably 2 blocks down that road with these like candle power flashlights that are dying. Can't see anything because the town's pitch black, no power. There's no headlights on the forklift. Even if there was, the tornado probably would have ripped them off. And I'm plowing my way down the street, and there's people just walking down the street, like heads down, like you would see in a movie or something. Like it was bizarre. It was the most eerie feeling because I didn't have enough flashlight to like see where I'm going in the first place. And here's these people walking down the road like zombies, not getting out of the way. They have no idea what's going on. They look like they're in a trance, right? Finally get enough road cleared to the hospital, like ambulance can come down this thing. And by this point, like my tires are going flat. Like there's just so much shit that I've already ran over that it's basically inoperable at that point. And I can remember finally like, all right, I made it to the hospital. There's like not a soul around. I'm just gonna go to the house to make sure my mom's all right. So I get the forklift back to the house. I'm running on 2 flat tires at that point. Park it, and then here, lo and behold, here comes my dad. Like, looks like he just came back from Mexico with a truckload of people in the back. He's got everybody's families that he's picked up outside of town that can't make it through all the mud and debris and everything. He's apparently just monster trucked his way into town.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
And I remember like I shut the forklift off. Here comes dad pulling up in the driveway. And here's my mom somewhere from the bowels of the house starts screaming at my dad. The second time in my life I needed you the most and you weren't here. Oh, dude, she ripped him up and down and left and right. Like it was bad.
Poor Dave.
So bad. And like, I'm gonna go check on my friend's house. I don't want to listen to this anymore. So I went down and checked on my buddy's house and couldn't find anybody there. So yeah, eventually came back and we got in dad's truck and left. Or no, we loaded up all the guns. I don't really know what the point of all that was, but dad wanted his guns out of the house. So we loaded up all the guns in the truck and got out of town.
It's so funny because it's so Dave. You know what I mean? I don't care about the baby pictures. Grab the guns. No.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, that night was crazy. I was under the same sky as you. You know, you were talking about when you were out doing your thing and you couldn't see. I've never seen strobe lightning like that in my life. It was just constant lightning in the sky, but it wasn't coming down. It was just above in itself.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of like if you ever watch Stranger Things and they go to the upside down world. Like it reminds me of the clouds in that show. Like it really does whenever they're in the upside down world. But that's just a quick reference for anybody who's wondering what the sky might have looked like that night. But yeah, so what did you and Dave and what did everybody do once you guys got your guns and all the people? Did you guys dip out of there or what? Where'd you stay that night?
We went over to my parents' friend's house, I think. That or my aunt and uncle's, I don't remember. But I do remember by the time we got out of the, like, this is hours in. It's probably 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning at this point. I remember, but like what would that building have been? The bar, I think, at the time. Like they had like this little command unit set up there, and like people were starting to gather there, like cops and whoever else, emergency responders. And I think they had like some sort of check-in thing. I can remember stopping there and saying like, yeah, Hardinger so-and-so, like we're here, present, alive. So I think that was more like a body count. And unfortunately, like I can remember my dad saying something about what about the vols, because they were like our neighbor catty corner. Well, nobody ever went and checked on them. Like I knew that Beverly, the old lady, she wasn't in that great of health. Like, and Dad was pretty concerned about her, but in the midst of it all, nobody ever thought to check on him. Come to find out later, like she had been impaled. They didn't have a basement. She had been impaled by like a 2x4 or something that came down the hallway at Mach 3, like standing right next to her husband. He made it out fine, but yeah, it was.
I never heard that.
Yeah, something like 15 lives were lost in that storm.
Wow. No, I never heard that one. That's very unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for as big as it was, didn't it kill mainly truckers that like stopped along the highway? Like a lot of truckers stopped along the highway because they couldn't see. They were driving. It was raining.
Yeah.
And so they just pulled over.
It's hailing. It's raining. Like they stopped in town because there's a truck stopping whatever. They could pull over and hang out. Lo and behold, they stopped in the most dangerous part of the world they could have been in at that particular moment. But yeah, unfortunately, I think that was the majority of the lives lost, was just people traveling to town that didn't have anywhere to go. Like they probably didn't even know it was coming.
Yeah. I knew. I forget her last name, Allie. But anyways, there's one person I knew, or I heard a story that the house had shifted like off of its foundation and exposed the basement, and a truck came in and landed on an older gentleman. Is that a true story, or is that just something that I think I remember and it's not right?
There was, I wouldn't be surprised. Like there's vans and cars and shit sticking out of people's roofs all over town. So, and I do remember seeing houses completely just moved like to the middle of the road, left foundation, just plopped down in the middle of the road, still pretty well intact. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. I think the story you're talking about was like close to the high school at the time.
Yeah, it was just one of those stories I heard.
I faintly remember that, but oh, to touch on the OnStar lady. So a couple weeks go by, like this lady calls my mom back, apologizing, like crying, saying sorry a million times. Like I thought that it was a prank call. She said she tried to call the numbers that I gave her. She tried like a couple times. They wouldn't go through. And she's like, it's just a prank call because they get a million of them all the time, you know? So she just quit. She gave up. And she apparently, you know, through the news, whatever, saw the story and was like, oh my God.
Well, the news was huge.
Yeah.
We had never had Haviland or Greensburg or any small town in Southwest Kansas on CNN. And I went on my senior trip a week later and to Santa Monica. And when we were in the airport in Las Vegas or wherever we were, it was all over the news, Greensburg, Kansas. And I was like, it felt like I don't know if you've ever seen Stranger Things, but it did. It felt like an event happened in our small town that we were there and knew about it. And then all of a sudden the whole world knew about it. And I was like, this is crazy. And then that's crazy. She called you and apologized. Like clearly she saw it. She was like, holy crap, that's the kid I was talking to.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, oh my God, this wasn't a prank call. This kid was serious.
Well, she tried, you know.
She said she did try. God knows if she did, but she said she tried a couple times, and then she's like, it was just a prank call. I was hoping she would tell, like, from the sincerity and the pleas with me that this was a legitimate.
Serious.
Yeah, this was a legitimate thing, and I really needed her to keep calling these numbers, but yeah, she didn't.
I'm sure those OnStars got so many stupid calls all the time, you know.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But to move forward with the story, so you know, weeks went by, and at the time George Bush Jr. was president, and he actually came to Greensburg. I think the weekend I was in Santa Monica on my senior trip, and he came to Greensburg and actually approached your family right in front of your guys' family house. What was that like?
Yeah. So we had seen Secret Service, you know, heard rumors of presidents coming into town. Secret Service had been going through, it's like plotting a route for him to take through town. And as we're standing outside one day, like, here's Secret Service comes by, we asked him, like, hey, do you know the route the president's taking? Like, is he going to be coming through here? He's like, well, I can't give you that information because they didn't want somebody to be able to plan something, some assassination or something like that. But if you stay here, there's a pretty good chance you're going to see him. I'm like, okay. And sure enough, a few hours later, president's in town. He's doing his march around town. Everybody knows about it. Here's Secret Service, like, going ahead of him. They get to the corner of our house, and they come up to us, and they're like, do you have any weapons or knives or anything like that on you? We're like, oh, he's coming here. This is going to be pretty fucking cool. And so, we took all of our guns or knives, whatever kind of weapons that we had on us, when we put them in the truck, and all right, you're good to go. You can go back to doing whatever. And so we all stood in the front lawn and we waited. And sure enough, here comes the president just walking down the street. There's no car, there's no motorcade, whatever. He's just walking, and he comes up Lincoln Street and walks straight to our house where we're standing. Okay, so we all gather around, and he comes up and he meets my mom, meets us, shakes our hands, apologizes, whatever. And it's pretty funny. My mom was like, so I would have invited you in for coffee, but I didn't have time to dust. It's just so ironic because her house is behind it, just completely blown apart, right? It was pretty great. And I remember being like, oh, it's George Bush, he's a Republican, whatever. He's the best president in the world. Come to find out later, he wasn't. But
right. No,
yeah, it was really cool. To meet any president is a pretty neat deal, because it was probably the most popular person in the world, at any given moment. That was a really cool deal. But
I've only seen. Sorry, keep going.
Oh, he actually invited my parents when he came back to town for graduation, for Greensburg graduation, and did a speech and all that. And he invited my parents for a VIP, behind the scenes kind of meet and greet, because he wanted to talk to him again, and ended up signing their pictures and stuff that the White House had taken, because we did a big group photo, and he signed pictures and gave them to my parents for just as a gift. It was pretty cool. They're still hanging up in their house to this day.
That's cool. I mean, like you said, I wish George W. Bush didn't start a 20-year war, but other than
well, yeah.
But whatever, dude. But it's pretty cool that you got to meet him, and
yeah.
And I've only seen one president in real life ever, and it was Donald Trump, and it was during the 2020 election. He came to Newport, and me and my brother, we heard, hey, Donald Trump's going to go to Lido Island, which is an island on the peninsula of Newport. And I was like, I lived in the Back Bay. So we heard he was going to go to Lido, and we could get to Lido Island by paddleboarding. So we get we get on our paddle boards, and we start paddleboarding. And all of a sudden we see a huge line of Americans with all these American flags. 10,000 people came into Newport, and we're all standing along the side of the road. And so we were kind of not VIP, but we're in the water. So we were just paddleboarding and trying to figure out where he was going to be. And me and him went underneath the Newport Boulevard Bridge, and we parked our paddleboards there, crawled out, got on the bridge, and we heard that he was going to come in on Newport Boulevard and take a left onto Lido. And so this place was packed. It's the height of COVID. No one's wearing a mask. It felt like it had all been locked down in California, so it was crazy to be doing this. And then all of a sudden, about 30 minutes goes by. Everybody's passing everybody beers, and everybody's like making fun of the whole COVID stuff. It was really nice, actually. And then out of nowhere, all these Secret Service cars start flowing out. So he's leaving Lido Island to go back onto Newport Boulevard and hit the freeway. And so me and my brother are just standing there, and we're like, that's not him. That's not him. And all of a sudden we see him, and he's doing a big thumbs up smile and waving like this. And the place erupted, dude. Erupted. it was nuts, and it blew my mind, the energy that a president can have. Like, I realized then, holy crap, like, this is probably the most talked about person on the planet right now.
For real.
And I was just like,
especially Donald.
yeah, especially the Don. And he was just like 10 feet away from me in his car, just smiling at us, going like this. And I could tell that Secret Service card was loaded with like probably 3-inch freaking sniper
Oh yeah.
FMJ glass. But it was pretty powerful to meet a president. So, or I didn't even meet him. He just drove by me. But so that had been cool to meet George W.
No, it was really cool, and it blew my mind. Like, you heard about presidents getting out and walking amongst the people back in the day. Not in 2007, and he actually had the balls to do it. Like, apparently, like, I'm sure they checked like the voters in that area before they ever thought about having him step out of a vehicle. But
he's like, I'm gonna go to the swimming pool too. Like, he probably do. He probably do. I'm good.
So he walked around town for a long time just on foot, which blew my mind, because like I would have thinking back to it, like, I would have had no problems killing that man that day. Like, it would have been super easy to get done. Seriously.
Well, you're just saying he left himself insanely exposed.
Yeah, super. Yeah. No, I'm not saying like I would have killed the president or something like that, but I'm saying like it would have been easy to do. He was very, very exposed. Like, it wasn't like they came through with minesweepers and checked the place. Yeah. Like, anybody could have been hiding underneath a pile of rubble, because there was plenty around, and shot him. Super easy.
Politics, I know that in the past, presidents have been shot, like, and whatnot. But as growing up, I never felt that, like for our area, it always felt like, come on in, it's safe, until a couple presidents became president. But like, yeah, you just never felt that chaos. And now it's like, dude, these dudes are, I wouldn't want to be president at all, because you're either getting half of the country wanting to kill you, or the other half and the other half loves you. It's such a tough job right now. You have to be like a narcissist, egomaniac to want that job. But yeah, back then it kind of seemed noble, but then once, yeah, but yeah, anyways, thanks for telling that story.
Yeah, tornado takes the house out. We meet the president. He has a press conference right in front of our house in the street, and we got to meet him again later at graduation. It was really cool.
That's so cool. We ended up, I had a summer job cleaning up Greensburg. We worked with this company out of Nebraska. I think Dave partnered with them, and like, we used their trucks and their gooseneck trailers. And I just remember, Dave excavating all the debris from all the houses, all the nails. Like, people have no idea. Like, the tire shop guy was booming.
Oh my God.
That guy was like, every time we'd go in there, he'd be like, just swamped, clean, like, changing tires, trying to get more tires to put on cars, because car tires were popping left and right from nails.
Yeah, and they brought in like 5 different tire shop crews from the area to try and keep up, and it just wasn't enough. I remember, like, we would work with our skid loader for literally 5 minutes. Boom, there goes another tire. Take it back off. Go get it fixed. Put it back on. Boom, 5 minutes. Like, it was awful.
That's bad. Yeah, it was bad. Yeah, we would drive those gooseneck trailers out to the burn pit, and it would just be a line of people in line, ready to back up that 30-foot gooseneck trailer, hit the hydraulic, and drop it into the burning debris. And there was one time, I think I saw a dude, he was tipping his hydraulic gooseneck up, and it just started tipping, and his whole truck slammed on its side. And I'm sitting there tipping mine like, oh, that sucks. And like, I'm only 19 or 18, and I don't know if anybody knows, but like, if you're driving a gooseneck trailer by a pickup, you got to be talented. I wasn't talented. I'd never done it before. And your dad, the thing I love about working for your dad is, if I didn't know how to do something, he'd be like, well, get in there and learn. That's the only way you're going to do it. He kind of like always pushed me. Like, even when I came out here to California, I worked for a rock quarry mine, and they're like, hey, can you run this cone and this crusher? And I was like, yep. And I had no idea.
I don't have a clue, but
yep, I can do it. And then they're like, all right, here's the controls. and it was like two tanks. And one had the crusher had to sit up on a 3-foot pad and crush big boulders, and then my cone was 3 inch, set for 3 inch, so it'd crush it and go up into that. One time, this guy named Omar goes, he would excavate and make the pad, and it was 3 feet up, and these machines were 2 million a piece. And I was like, I was gonna move the crusher off the pad, and it was too steep of a drop. Like I was thinking if I went down, there was a possibility it could tip. And he's like, yeah, right, Drew, you got that. And I'm controlling it with the controller, like a remote control. So for mom or any moms out there listening who think video games are bad for kids, yeah, right. It helped me out a lot. So I'm messing with this controller and I'm moving it forward and I'm going off of this pad and it starts to tip. And I just am like, in shock kind of because I'm like, I'm gonna tip this $2 million crusher. And so I hit back on the tracks and it's like this, and then doom, I hit the right way the tracks should go to flatten it out. And he looks at me and he goes, "You're crazy as hell, kid. I would have never done that." Like he was just punking me to try to do it in front of him. And like he gave me the confidence because he's like, "Oh yeah, you can easily do that." And then after it was done, he's like, "You're crazy."
He's like, "Oh my God, I was just kidding."
Yeah. But yeah, dude.
Fantastic.
Thanks for that story, man. That story's legit. And anybody listening, that's you had to go through it to tell it. Like it's a gnarly story.
Yeah, it definitely changed my life. Like storms nowadays are, it's not like I'm like terrified or panicked about them, but you think twice. Like it definitely puts a new perspective. I remember here a couple months ago with some tornado threats in the area. Like I don't think I have enough insurance on my home to cover my like expensive computer and stuff like that. So I took all my guns and everything down to the basement because at least you can go collect it later.
I have a boss that asks me all the time. He's like, "Why do people not build?" I guess there's this wall building stuff that it's like foam and then concrete.
Oh yeah.
And it's like really great for insulation. It's really great for all that stuff. And I said, "Man, we don't make that much money out there. Like it's people just, wood's the cheapest, I think, and we just build it out of wood. It's not like California where you get $120,000 jobs and you and your wife are making $210 a month or a year or something."
Yeah, no, we actually used to be a dealer for a company. They're called insulated concrete forms, ICF blocks.
Yep.
And yeah, just little Legos. You stack them up, pour concrete in the middle. Yeah, they're
That's
awesome.
The way to go. That's the way to go.
Freaking expensive.
Yeah. But if you're like really trying to, everybody's fleeing California and New York and all these other places. If you're thinking about moving to the Midwest, you better use ICF building so that way you keep your house. Greensburg was kind of like a guinea pig to this going green stuff. It was a trip. Like when we built those FEMA camp trailers and all that stuff, it kind of like people talk about FEMA camps and stuff like that right now, with the state of the world. And I'm just like, I've been to one. They're kind of legit.
Yeah. It was a FEMA trailer park.
Yeah. Heck yeah. And then Red Cross would feed us these basically prison meals, but they were good. I mean, they were decent for a high schooler. I didn't care. But yeah, man, we could vert away from talking about the tornado and all that stuff, and we could just dive into whatever. But I don't know. This has been a good podcast just talking about this.
Have you ever looked into any conspiracy about like weather control and modification and basically that the government can do whatever they want with a tornado or a hurricane or?
No, I
have you ever? Not. You have? Okay.
I have a friend who told me that like in China when they had the Olympics, they used weather controlled. I don't know what it's called. You'll have to explain it to me, but basically to keep the sun shining whenever it was going to be raining, and they actually pulled it off to where it was sunny during this Olympics at this area.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that.
That's what he had told me, but go on with this weather control stuff.
I don't know much about it, and I don't know how much I believe about it, but there is some pretty compelling evidence to suggest that like they can control the weather at least to some extent, whether that be like make it rain. I don't know if they could make a tornado or steer a tornado, but it'd be interesting to find out.
That's a hell of a weapon, dude.
Yeah, and supposedly back in the Vietnam War, they were able to flood some part of Vietnam, or maybe it was Korea. I don't remember, but they flooded this certain area, made it rain nonstop for like 2 or 3 weeks straight, to where nobody could move through there. Like they were just safe for a while.
So you always tell me about, all right, so we're going to talk conspiracy talk. So weather control and all that stuff. You were the first one to tell me chemtrails were a thing. I see it, I go outside, I work out here in sunny Southern California, and it's clear all the time, dude. It's always 75, blue skies every day. Shockingly, you would think that you would love that all the time, but it's been 10 years of it, and I'm like, yo, I want to see a thunderstorm, you know what I mean? But so you see these jets or these airplanes way up in the air, and you have that jet stream. For the most part, they say that is basically condensation.
Condensation, yeah, contrails.
What do you think it is?
I don't know. There is they don't deny that there's weather modification programs. They don't deny that they spray aerosols into the air via airplane.
What for, though?
That's what I don't know. There's unclassified military documents that they actually flew viruses and airborne illnesses over LA probably 25, 30 years ago, and got tons and tons of people sick, just as an experiment. And so to say that like government or whoever's running the show wouldn't deploy maybe some weaponry or any kind of experiment, whether that be make it rain or whatever, to say that they wouldn't do that on their own people is a lie. Like there's unclassified military documents stating, yeah, we did this. I don't know the story on that.
Well, look at Operation Northwood. I don't know if you know what Operation Northwood is. It's basically where they were going to shoot down a plane full of Americans and blame it on Cubans, just to start that Cuban Missile Crisis, or just to start a war there. There's some weird stuff that goes on, and it's not great. And it makes me, I've been trying to stay away from conspiracies because my wife is like, dude, you need to relax. Cause like it'll stir you up, man. It'll make you like, hey, what are they planning next? Like, what do I mean to them? Or will they try to do it? Like, anyways, but to tell a funny story about planes, and all that, I have my wife's cousin has a son who went to LA. It's not really that funny. But he was in school, and I guess they were playing recess, and a flight into LAX, I don't know if they couldn't like lift up high enough because of the weight of the plane, but they dumped fuel. They dumped the fuel, part of the fuel to get lighter. And that fuel landed on my cousin's kid in the playground. Like,
oh my God.
Fuel, yeah. That happened like 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. I hope I'm telling that right. I'm gonna have to ask her again when she comes. So take that with a grain of salt. I just remember seeing the news saying that, some kids at school got dumped on like some jet fuel, and then my wife or somebody when I got home was like, hey, his name's Salem. Salem got that. He was there, either him or Dorian, but either way, there's some weird stuff with planes, and like that's one of them where I'm like, I think they got sued out the ass for that. But
I'm sure. Yeah, like there's a conspiracy, of course, involved with chemtrails and all that, but they don't deny at all. Like they're being programs, and they don't deny that weather modification, like I say, via aerosol with a plane. They don't deny that at all. They do it.
Well, they're talking about food shortages right now. And for the most part, I don't necessarily believe there's a food shortage because I live in the most craziest place. It's Southern California. I go to Target, packed with food. I go places packed with food. So I haven't bought it yet, but if it does happen, then I mean, clearly I know their plan because I've studied it. But like Bill Gates owns a whole bunch of farmland, and if there is weather modification and they can control it, whoever they are, whether it's the World Economic Forum or who else, I don't know, or China or somebody, they could probably use it as a weapon to like starve out a civilization by like making it not rain there, or or like you said,
Or flooding it
floods.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, or flooding it out. So it's all interesting. Conspiracies are fun. They're really fun, until they're real, and then it's like,
Right.
holy shit. But
Do you remember the hurricanes that hit Texas 3 years ago?
that flooded Houston.
Flooded Houston and
Was this back
uh,
when Joel Osteen didn't open up his church for all those people, or is that
yes.
okay? Okay,
Yeah.
yes, I do.
So if you watch the radar during some of those, or during when that hurricane was coming into land, every time it would get over a land mass, it would grow in size, which is contradictory to any typical hurricane ever.
Yeah,
And they have the military has basically are giant fog cannons, look like a jet turbine, and I don't know how they work, but obviously pump water in, shoots a fog out, and they think that there was hundreds of those things parked on these islands pumping water into the storm, because like I say, whenever it hit land, it would explode, like it would get bigger, more powerful. And then there's one particular radar clip that there's like an explosion that goes off inside or on the side of the hurricane, and then from there it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't know if they shot something into it. It's just another conspiracy. I don't know the facts about it, but I do know that thing stuck around and rained inches, maybe feet, in Texas and ruined a lot of things. It was like that, plus a combination of all the other hurricanes that hit the southern U.S. that year, caused like a giant supply shortage of plywood. That's when like plywood and windows and everything went through the roof. There's tons of like insulation manufacturing down there. That stuff became incredibly rare.
I was wondering about plywood because I'm like, why is plywood so expensive right now? That's
Yeah,
like that's the crappy glue wood, like. But that makes
yeah,
sense if it took that
yeah,
out. That
yeah.
makes
I mean,
sense.
it became in huge demand, and so to say like that was planned for whatever agenda, I don't know, but it sure seems fishy, especially if you watch the radar. You go back and look at the radar footage, it's like something's going on here that isn't quite right, especially for
But
that many hurricanes that year. And boom, here's COVID shortly after that. Supply
yeah,
shortages went even more extreme. Food shortages back when COVID hit, like that was way worse than the whatever they've got going on now.
yeah. Like I keep thinking to myself. I told my wife, let's go to the garden shop. So we went Sunday, but we didn't get anything. But we're going to get just stuff to learn how to garden and have like broccoli, carrots, random stuff. Because I'm like, I mean, we can all grow our own food. I mean,
Yeah,
everybody's terrified of this food shortage, and I get it. I mean, inner cities, like idiots who have no wherewithal to get up and pull themselves up by their bootstraps are going to be screwed. And I always try to set myself up and my family up in a position where I can control our outcome better than, you know, just leaving it up to chance.
right.
But like we plan on moving to Kansas, and so when we get to Kansas, um, I'm trying to learn how to garden now, so when I get there, I can plant all the food I want and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Have a chicken coop, so I got my eggs, and if need be, I can slice one of their heads off and
Sure.
chow down on one of those guys.
Get you some
But
chicken nuggets.
yeah, like everybody's like freaking out, and I'm like, dude, just instead of freaking out, how about plan right now for just in case
Exactly.
something happens, and relax, dude. We can figure out this food stuff. I
You know,
think.
there's nothing wrong with prepping. Like
No.
our
Yeah.
ancestors did it. Their people before them did it. Everybody had cellars stocked full of home canned goods and all sorts of stuff like that. Like, and they say, well, it's if it gets that bad, God will provide. God will provide. Even back when Jesus roamed the earth, people prepared for the worst.
Yeah.
They stored food. They had a plan for when the harvest wasn't there. Like, so being prepared is a basic essential
It's part of life.
need. Yeah,
It's a
basic
part of
essential
life.
need of humans. Like, you have to be prepared for the worst.
My dad, he came during COVID. He always drives out here. He doesn't like to fly. And he shows up and he's like, "Hey son," he pulls out these two big pails. He's like, "This is a 6 month supply of food. This is another 6 month supply of food. This is for you. I got two more for your brother. And here's a water filtration system thing." And I was like, "Thanks, Dad." So like he kind of hooked it up just in case there is a weird little emergency. But
Yeah, you remember the show Doomsday Preppers? I'm
I
sure.
love that show. That show's the best.
Fantastic show. I thought everybody was crazy as hell when
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
started building all these shelters. That was what, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
That show came out and people have been doing it long before that. But
The
you look
cool.
at it today, it's like, well, maybe these people aren't so stupid after all. Like they've prepared.
Have you seen the like $2 million shelter in Kansas?
Yes.
Okay, those are.
It's like,
It's underground. It's an old bunker, or what is it? Like a missile silo?
yes, yeah,
And
it's an old missile silo.
they converted it. They have a swimming pool. They have a movie theater. They have like, I don't know, like if you spend 2 million on it, you get like your own apartment in it basically, and then you have shares to all the stuff, and I guess it can last up to maybe 5 years or something like that. Maybe like you're good to go for up to 5 years. And yeah, when Putin's over there twiddling his fingers, those seem pretty nice.
Right.
Whatever the heck that
Yeah.
is. But I'm trying not to worry about it too much and just live my life and trust that God has a plan and will provide for me. And that, even though it's chaotic as all get out, God is still in control. And I feel like these phones, they just spread fear. I mean,
You're exactly right.
you don't really see a whole lot of like good things going on. Like this guy says, we're programmed to walk outside. Just us as cavemen, we'd walk outside. We wouldn't go, oh, honey, oh, look at that sunrise. It's a beautiful sunrise, babe. Come take a look. No, we were like, oh, rocks, rattlesnake, saber-tooth tiger. Like we were just like always like looking for the bad.
Exactly.
And he goes, we're trained to do that. And he's like, for instance, when you're driving down the road and you see a car wreck, what happens? Everybody stops, like, wow, look at that. Slows down. It's like a train wreck or something and just burning. Everybody slows down and looks at it. Wow, they give it that attention. And then, but if you see a beautiful sunset by the beach, you're going 80, 90 miles an hour, just like, wow, yeah, pretty. Like,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Everybody's way more focused on the good, and whether that's
or the bad, you mean?
Way more focused on the bad, whether that's primal or not, I don't know, but
I think it is.
I think it is. You see way more of the bad than you do the good, that's for sure.
When I was single, sorry to interrupt.
Just to say, like, your phone is definitely a caveat for that. Like, you can find any awful thing you want to just with a quick Google search, and your news feed pops up with, here's 115 people died in this train crash. Like, it's just filled with bad things. And
you can also find videos like this that I'm going to share with you real quick.
Okay.
This video is awesome. This lets you know the kind of people that are in the United States that are pretty awesome. Chase, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to press play real quick.
My name's Dasha. I'm a furry, and I'm teaching you guys some ways that my friends and I meow to one another to communicate when words just seem a little too difficult. So here we go. Okay, so first off, we have the normal meow that we just use mostly to get each other's attention. Meow. Okay, then we have the dissatisfied meow. Then the angry meow, but we only use this one on rare occasions because overall we're a very happy kitten family. And a happy or content meow. Meow. Okay, then one of the most important ones for our kitten family is the I want to go potty meow. It took me a really long time to master this meow because it needs to be a really
specific I want to go potty meow
order for my kittens to understand. Meow, meow, meow. Okay.
Oh my god.
Me. And it's the I need help wiping meow. And last but definitely not least is our in heat meow, and we use this when we need a little bit more special kitten attention, if you know what I mean. Meow. Meow.
Yeah, bro. That's what's up, right?
What has happened?
I guess she identifies as a cat.
She has friends that are cats too.
Yeah, and
they communicate. This is how they say hello. Meow.
Oh man.
To each their own.
To each their own is right, dude. To each their own.
It's the beauty of this country. You can be just about whatever you want.
I know, that is the beauty of this country, and that's what I love.
Communicate with a meow, go right ahead and fucking meow away.
I know, that's how I feel about it too. I'm like, I don't knock it. I think it's absolutely asinine, but like it's so funny too. Like, I'd much rather live here than someplace like China or Russia. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Where you got to.
That's the thing about it. Like, if you think about freedom, you think about free will, you have to accept both sides of it, like the yin yang. Like it's dark and light. You got to accept the good with the bad. You got to take them both, and I guess appreciate them. But I guess you don't have to appreciate the bad, but you got to respect it because it's just goes with the good. So
yeah,
you want to be a cat person. I think it's stupid. We all think it's stupid, but meow,
Yeah.
Do your own thing, lady.
I'm with you on that. Chase, I could keep talking to you for a solid 3 hours, if I'm being honest. You are the easiest dude to talk to, and by far one of the funniest. But I'm gonna wrap it up just because it's been a solid podcast, and yeah, I'm just gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, my girlfriend's wondering why I'm meowing at you, but
I bet, dude. I bet. Well, you can explain to her later. Start communicating and kidding with her. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I'm going into heat right now, actually.
So I end this podcast. I always ask my guests, like, what's a memorable quote that kind of has stuck with you that you think about, whether you're working or you're down, or I don't know, something that just maybe somebody told you that was important and it just really sticks with you.
Now, the most important quote anybody ever told me was from Corey Newhold. And this is back when I wanted to try every drug under the sun. And he's like, "You want to try Coke?" I'm like, yeah. He's like, "Don't ever try it because you're going to like it." And that stuck with me since I was 16 years old. Like, it made a huge difference in my life because I wanted to do it all. And he's like, "Don't ever try it because you're going to like it." And that just really rang truth with me. It made a lot of sense. Like, probably shouldn't do that because I am going to like it. And where's that lead? Like, what good is a Coke addiction going to do for me? So,
good advice from the good old Corey Newhold.
Yes. The guy who's pretty well done every drug known to man. He knows a thing or two about it.
Oh, yeah. I did mushrooms with some people for his bachelor party. It was the only time I've ever done them. And I could go on about that. Trust me.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I really enjoyed it. A couple buddies of mine that were doing it, they didn't enjoy it. And I remember going up to one of them and being like, "Hey, you doing okay?" And he's like, "Don't talk to me. I'm talking to Jesus right now." And I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Josh has told me that story quite a few times.
I was trying not to put Josh on blast, but yeah, that was my friend, Josh.
Sorry, Josh.
So with that being said, don't try to do the kitten stuff with your partner because you're gonna like it.
Exactly. Great
advice. You guys have a good day. Yeah, Chase, thanks for everything, man.
Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Peace, everybody.
Love you, buddy.
Love you too, man. Later.